This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Today it's Friday. It's September 27th, 2024. And thank you for joining us here on thetruthcentral.com. We're doing podcasts every weekday. You can find me on X at Corsi Jerome 1. Of course, it's very much shadow banned. I hardly get anybody over there. They make sure you're censored down hard. But I'm at Corsi Jerome 1, and we do post over there, so follow it. And also, my Substack is Jerome Corsi PhD.substack.com. And I'm doing much more posting on Substack and getting more followers. So I expect that'll be more active over the next year or so. Supposing we have another year or so. With all the things going on in the world, who knows? I'm still waiting to see how NATO responds to Putin, because NATO says they want to send these long-range missiles into Russia to hit targets in Russia, and Putin says that's nuclear war. So we could have nuclear war anytime now. It's I think the closest it's ever been in my lifetime to nuclear war. And these nutcases around in the NATO and the United Nations, they don't seem to care. They're all depopulationists, and why not a billion people here, a billion people there? They don't care. Eliminate them. The more, the merrier. That seems to be the attitude of the new global elite. We don't need people. The world would be a wonderful place if we could have fewer people, or maybe no people, except for themselves. Then they could have the United Nations, and they could do all the voting they want, and nobody'd pay them. Of course, that's what's different from today. The only ones paying them, stupid enough to pay them, are Biden and Kamala. We've got a lot I want to cover today. I want to start out here with this Mayor Adams story. And Chris, I think you've got some. Oh, by the way, God's Five Stones. Please go to God's Five Stones. God, no apostrophe on the S. FIVESTONES. You spell out the five and stones. We're covering the algorithms, and we're doing. We'll be doing more on this week. We've got right now on God's Five Stones, Christopher, show the homepage. It's one of the more important articles I've written, I think. It has to do with, are the intelligence agencies running the elections? And I think the answer is yes. I think the intelligence agencies are running the elections. And we'll be publishing more on this coming week. I'm going to try over the weekend to write another piece on this. And it's just amazing to me that it's gotten as little coverage as it has. But the point is, around the country, we're finding that the state boards of elections have algorithms coded into their database, unknown to the state board of election, that permits the voting of non-existent voters as mail-in voters, and they manage to get these non-existent voters voter IDs so that they look like they're legitimate, and you can't tell the difference. And so when they vote all these mail-in ballots, the numbers match because they're voting people who don't exist, but yet have a valid state ID. That trick is hard to achieve, but if you look at the math and look at everything on the site, you'll see how it happens. And I guess I've got to hand it to the intelligence agencies. They figured out that the population's so dumbed down, doesn't understand math. So even if you find their algorithms and try to explain it to people, they won't believe it's there. Because they say, well, that's not possible. How could that be? Well, here's another one. All these articles we've done trying to explain it and describe it. If you just take a little bit of time and look at this, you'll see that we can prove that there are algorithms in the state election databases. And they do allow for a scheme to hide mail-in ballots that are faulty. So you've got voters that don't exist, voters that are clones, and they're stacked into the deck in a way that you can't find them. And again, the math is there, but you have to be able to understand the math, to understand the scheme. And so I'll hand it to the intelligence agencies. They, once again, they don't lose a betting on the stupidity of the American people. After we quit in our schools teaching anything but a gender insecurity, are you a man or are you a woman? Well, if you are a man or can't figure out if you're a man or a woman, I don't think you can do a logarithm. You don't even know what a logarithm is, let alone doing something like modular math or anything more advanced than arithmetic. And even that skill is probably going to be lost here eventually. Okay, so please go here because this is, I think, critical. The battle that we're fighting in the states, and we have now proven the algorithms are in a lot of states. We have a case before the Ohio board, the Ohio Secretary of State's office. We presented it formally. They are looking at it. It's conceivable they could agree that there is an algorithm in their database. That would be a breakthrough. So we're waiting to see what they ultimately decide. And, we presented the case to them earlier this week. And so far, they have not said no. They haven't rejected it. So we'll see what's going on and follow it very closely. Okay, now let's go to the mayor in New York, because this is another story that is just, to me, unbelievable. I mean, New York has gotten to the point where it's bedlam, it's insanity. So here's the mayor. Chris, you want to show us what we got with our mayor, our
Yes.
genius mayor?
A little background, though. Let's get the background here because,
Right.
as you know, the Biden administration has been allowing too many migrants into the country without vetting
What's
them.
too many?
A million, over a million, things like that.
Just
Ever
a
since,
million.
yeah, since Title 42 went down, since Title 42 ended, everybody they came in. Of course, the Biden administration stupidly uh, eliminated the stay in Mexico policy, which was sensible,
They did that
but it was
intentionally. It
Trump.
wasn't
Right.
stupid. They did that intentionally.
They
They
did
did
it,
that to flood the country with immigrants.
but the idea was it was also Trump's idea. So,
Yeah, right.
so these unvetted people are in here, and now they're flooding cities. But mayors are silent. A lot of these mayors are playing ball. They're letting things happen. They're saying, "Well, we're so grateful to be a sanctuary city." Mayor Adams, however, has been finally speaking up over the last couple of months, and she's saying, he's saying things like, "Look, this has to stop. You're letting too many people in. We cannot accommodate them. We have we have illegals taking services from the people who need them. This needs to stop." He's standing up to the Democrat establishment, which, by the way, is a no-no. So now his campaign, one of his campaign people got investigated. He's being investigated. His police commissioner was forced to resign. The fire commissioner is being investigated. All his friends are being, let's just say, they're being deep stated. That's what's happening. But he says he's still standing. And yesterday he said, "There's no way I'm going to resign. I'm going to keep the job."
This play a clip
to us at all. The actions that have unfolded over the last 10 months, the leaks, the commentary, the demonizing. This did not surprise us that we reached this day. My day-to-day will not change. I will continue to do the job for 8.3 million New Yorkers that I was elected to do. And the 300,000 plus employees of our city government will continue to do their jobs because this is what we do as New Yorkers.
Basically, he's standing up to the deep state, standing up to the left establishment, and he's getting he's being, well, let's put it this way. He is taking the consequences, and they're showing everybody else what happens to them if they dare step out of line.
Yeah, he's going to get indicted. All people related to him are getting indicted. And of course, the Department of Justice and all of our great law enforcement are just over there to politically enforce the left's agenda. And it has nothing to do with anything except that, we want to destroy America. So just open the floodgates. Let's bring in all the immigrants. And New Yorkers will leave in droves, taking with them their salaries and their tax dollars. And the city will be, again, bankrupt. And, the subways aren't safe to ride again. The city is just not safe anymore. So that's what happens when the city deteriorates to this point. Democrats are brilliant at this. When you want to destroy a city, just put the Democrats in there.
That's the truth. It is, and then when the mayor or somebody who's in charge finally speaks up, oh, there's oust them, indict them. This is what these people do. They find a way to put these politicians in a position to accept something or get some, let's just say, unsavory help. Then they hold that over them to make sure these people do their bidding, because a lot of these people get into office owing people. Look, Barack Obama owed a lot of people when he got in. Eric Adams owed a lot of people when he got in. Mayor de Blasio owed a lot of people when he got in. All these people do that. So then when some Hochul, but anyway, when the left overlords, the deep state wants something done, they come down on these people and make sure it gets done, or else they know they have something on them. Well, finally somebody stands up. But
This is what happens.
think about how many haven't though. Think about what corrupt actions are going on behind the scenes that will never be exposed because these lefties are playing ball with the deep state.
Well, and again, this mayor is going to be now indicted, and so now we'll have New York's mayor indicted because he dared to say, "Don't give me any more immigrants. I've had enough."
Right.
Okay, and the left, of course, the left's agenda is that violate. And what did he do? Well, he took some luxury trips, and he probably accepted some money from his campaign, used his campaign money personally. They can find something on anybody, and so this is what they're going after him for. They scrutinize expenses, they scrutinize the money use, and then they find something, and then boom, they lower the boom on him, and they go after him for, what they'll call bribery, because somebody gave him a big trip and put him in a luxury hotel for a while. Somebody who wanted a favor done, and so therefore, but how about But Biden, forget it. But Biden's not going to face any of these charges, nor is
No.
Hunter.
That's because they did their thing. They did the bidding. They did everything that they were told to do.
Right. They follow the script.
Right.
To the best they could. Of course, Biden couldn't remember the script.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, he had somebody guiding him over, though. He had Obama guiding him off stage and on script. So,
And Joe was there to, steer him around. And so therefore they stayed on script. That's the whole thing, is stay on script. So if they're, and by the way, once they go satanic, become, Lucifer, watching the videos on X of all these people with Satan worship, which is massive. So here we go with Satan worship. So you want to get off the Satan bus. Now you've got a real problem.
Yeah, they send the minions after you. There we go. And
Okay.
the little demons, they'll fly around your head and try to get you in more trouble. That's what happens.
So what's Kamala up to these days?
Well, Kamala Harris has been doing pretty much nothing as usual. But
Giving interviews.
well, she gave the interview her first solo interview was with Stephanie Rule. It was of MSNBC, and I'm sure people have seen some of the clips of it. There's some things to worry about here, at least beforehand. When Stephanie Rule was carefully selected as the first person to interview Kamala Harris, we all knew that she's the one that was on television recently saying that Kamala Harris does not have to explain her positions. She should never have to, because the fact is she's running against Donald Trump and Donald Trump has to go. As a journalist, she made her thoughts known. Well, she'll be the perfect one for Kamala Harris to
Be interviewed by.
Interviewed by. Right, exactly. So here's what happens. Did you see this? Did you see the interview?
No, I didn't see the interview. I'm doing my best not to watch Kamala Harris. I mean, I've had enough of these people.
The big joke was that Kamala Harris was in a basement, and the interview looks like it took place in a basement where she was sitting with this Stephanie Rule and yapping on. You'll see a workbench in the background, some tools. You'll see a little bit blurry back here. There's an American flag kind of partially hidden in there. There's some I don't know, just basement stuff, if you will. And they look like that's where they were. I'm sure they tried to make her look like a regular middle class person doing something from a regular middle class place. And I was thinking that they might actually go out and try to build a birdhouse together afterward, but that wasn't going to happen because that would require the use of tools.
And is there any substance that came out of this interview? Anything new that she said that any way noteworthy? I don't think so.
She came up with a new word that she's going to be using a lot more called holistic. And
holistic.
She's talking about how when she tried to answer a question, there was a question asked about how she was going to pay for her ambitious $25,000 house credit and her new tax credit for young couples. And she went on to talk about how she has an opportunity economy, and it should be a holistic look at the economy. Everything should be holistic. And even Teddy here says it's been rough watching that.
Okay.
But that's the new word, and you're going to be hearing that a lot more.
It's sustaining.
Holistic.
It's just
Right.
and sustainable.
And Stephanie Rule has been on air saying that she was criticizing Harris. This is a
And
woman who said vote for Harris at all costs, and she's saying the woman didn't answer questions.
And sustainable. Remember, sustainable.
Well, yeah, that I don't know if she wants to steal that from the UN, but again,
It's sustainable.
it might be too long of a word for her.
All right, I want to cover a couple of other stories here. Of course, the hurricane's now headed towards Atlanta, and it seems to be a pretty powerful hurricane. It's causing a lot of damage. It's like 2 million people without power, and it's headed towards Atlanta. Also, the economy. I think the economy is going to be tanked next year early, especially if Trump wins. If Trump wins, there's going to be, I think, a major global crash. I've been talking about that for months. And Chris put up the book on how the coming global crash is going to cause a massive gold rush. Gold is today at $2,668 an ounce, and silver's at $32 an ounce and gaining. They're both going to continue gaining. And I'm initiating a program here where we'll help people to try to turn their IRAs into gold and silver IRAs very easily. And that'll be with Swiss America. We'll be announcing that probably next week. Maybe we'll do a couple of interviews on that, how the process works. But the point is here, we're at a crossroads in terms of the economy, because right now we're just spending money like crazy. As we continue to do that, we're going to continue with raising the debt. The debt is now $35 trillion, and the amount we're paying on the interest on the debt is huge. And so you can't just have this much debt globally. Eventually, it's going to crash. And on the website, if you'll call Swiss America to get a copy of this book, call 1-800-519-6268. How the coming global crash will create an historic gold rush. Okay, now that's, I think, a very important point. And as we see this developing, watch the signs. So at the moment, the stock market is up at highs. Let me just see where it is right at the second. And the stock market is going to continue to look good as long as we are in the election cycle. So the Dow Jones today is up slightly. The futures are up, and it's at 42,000. Okay, well, it was just a few minutes ago at 31,000. So that's a bubble, and the bubbles are going to burst. And so when it does burst, it's going to be painful, because it was a lot of fun for a lot of people going from 31,000 to 41,000. It's not going to be so much fun going back to 31,000. Okay, I remember when the Dow was like at 485. Okay, going back to Richard Nixon's time. And now you've got these numbers here, which really don't mean anything in terms of their inflated value. And that's been the problem, is the currency has been inflated to the point where a dollar is not worth a dollar anymore. A dollar's worth a couple pennies in terms of what it looked to be could buy going back to 1970s. And prices are all at enormous levels. People go out to dinner to a nice fancy restaurant, a family of four, you can spend $300, $400, $500. And it isn't the most luxurious dinner you've ever had. It's ridiculous how much things cost today. And people are living on their credit cards. Well, that's going to stop. So call Swiss America, 1-800-519-6268. You can take your IRA, you can roll it over into gold and silver, which will start appreciating. Swiss America will establish for you a fiduciary account at a Delaware trust where the gold and silver is held. And then you get a Lloyd's of London guarantee on that gold and silver. And the whole process can be accomplished very easily by Swiss America. And we'll be marketing this, I think, starting next week. I'm going to emphasize throughout October the need to get out of the stock market. There's lots of good materials on our website from Swiss America. Get the free brochure on, the coming secret war on cash. You can get the Walking Liberty $50 offer for first-time buyers. Again, just fill out the forms. Swiss America, 1-800-519-6268. I really stress the need to get out of stocks and bonds before the markets crash. Okay, now a couple of other points I want to focus on today. The UK is finally saying we're done with coal. So this closure of the Ratcliffe-on-Soar power station in England marks the end of coal-fired electricity in the UK. This is to achieve net zero emissions and transition to renewable energies like wind and solar. In fact, the UK is the first G7 country to phase out coal entirely, demonstrating its step towards a, quote, cleaner and more sustainable energy future. Okay, what does that mean? It means that Britain's going to freeze the winter and people aren't going to be able to pay to keep their homes. But that's okay. They're not using any coal. The coal would work. It'd be cheap. People could be warm. That would be sustainable for the people being warm. But be cold, not be able to pay your electric bill. Don't worry about it because you're achieving net zero. So Ratcliffe's closure puts a full stop on the country's use of coal for electricity. That began with the phasing out of the Holborn Viaduct Power Station in London in 1882. The first time a coal plant was closed. Okay, but we've now had a speed up of this so that coal went on to play a major role in the energy supply for Great Britain throughout the 20th century. But now we don't need any more coal. Okay, it's suicide. It's economic suicide. But this is, again, what the United Nations wants. This is what the United Nations 2030 and 2040 and 2050 and 2090 and 20 forever. And you're not going to own anything. You're not going to be able to travel more than a 15-minute city. You're going to eat bugs, and you'll be happy because you won't have anything to worry about. You'll be poor and happy. Okay, so if we take a look at Climate Depot, which is one of the sites that I think is most important in terms of following the truth here about energy, you see Argentina is refusing to endorse the UN Pact for the Future or the 2045 Agenda, which is climate change and gender equality. Instead, what Argentina is going to do is prioritize the defense of economic freedom and private property. Well, that sounds terrible. They can't do that. Pretty soon they'll be talking about freedom of speech. Okay, so Mark Morano is on Rebel TV saying the science is becoming a consensus enforcement mechanism. And of course, Scientific America endorses Harris, which is amazing. I doubt if she has ever used a slide rule in her life. And probably does not know what a differential equation is. Don't worry about that. She can be president. So Biden made false emission claims at the UN about the U.S. being on track to cut emissions in half by 2030. The reality check is his own Department of Energy admitted that 50% reductions are not going to be happening, nor are the EVs going to be happening. Okay, because in fact, the EVs are designed to be obsoleted. You can't resell them. The resale value is very low. They cost enormous amounts to repair. Don't get into an accident because you'll have to scrap the whole thing if you have a fender bender. But Ford is now filing a patent to spy on drivers to listen to conversations in the car. And they can report those right directly to the NSA, which can then have the thought police descend upon you because you dared not to get on the current agenda, whatever the agenda is. Read 1984 by George Orwell. Sometimes it's hard to follow the agenda because it changes so quickly. Just have to listen to what Big Brother says. Big Brother will tell you what to believe. Okay, so we go back into looking at some of the... just take a look. sometimes it's fun just to pull up the New York Times and see what the headlines are. Let's see what they're doing today. And bottom, I used to subscribe to all these papers and read them every day in New York. Today, it's hardly worth reading them at all. Okay, so they're talking about Holy Hollywood. Batman is the first superhero without a Walk of Fame star. Well, that deserves top coverage. Okay, and as Adams' fate hangs in the balance, Cuomo waits in the shadows. Okay, can Eric Adams survive a foreign bribery scandal? The indictment against Mayor Eric Adams includes revelations that range from amusing to troubling. Here's 10 of them. Okay, that's what the Times is covering today. And then, of course, the Zelensky of Ukraine is in New York. He's going to meet with Donald Trump today. And Donald Trump, I'm sure, is going to have a few words for him saying, we could end this war. Let's end it now. I think you're seeing here the country at a real crossroads between complete insanity, complete woke nonsense, and the challenge of Donald Trump, which makes these people insane. Now, there's an interesting idea floating around, which is that maybe the Democrats will just concede losing this election. Maybe they've already conceded losing this election because they think that they don't want Kamala Harris in here. Now, Chris, you had some thoughts on that. I would like to hear your point of view on this because you were expressing earlier that Kamala is too stupid to know that her job is to comply with the deep state.
That's what I'm gathering here. It's funny because you're actually hearing some left-leaning commentators bit by bit criticizing her. And we did talk about the Red Mirage articles that were coming out a couple weeks ago. I haven't seen as many of them as we saw back in 2020. So here's what I was thinking. Watching Kamala Harris embarrass herself and probably her entire party and women in politics as a whole over the last month, it seems they believe they made the wrong decision. That's my guess. And just like 2016, and in conjunction with your research and Andrew Paquette's research, about the algorithms and the ability to, let's just say, play with the potential ability. I have to say that to play with the election results. There's a good chance that they're not going to fix or let's say fortify this election for. I'm using their term, fortify this election for Kamala Harris. The strategy would be to let Donald Trump win for a couple of reasons. One, because he cannot run for a second term.
Right.
That puts 2028 in play for anybody. It's a toss-up.
Immediately, right away.
Right. Then the idea was the strategy would be for 2 years, just like they did between 2017 and 2018, call Trump a racist, twist every bit of his words around. Don't bother discussing his accomplishments, whether it be no new wars or economic policy, that sort of thing, and just highlight some of the things, highlight only bits of what he says and say, this man's not fit to be president. He's a racist. Get a couple of moles like a Vindman or two to pretend something happened and through hearsay. And all of a sudden take Congress, because people are going to be fed up with Trump's antics, which is the only thing you'll see on television in 2026. And that's where the real keys to power are held. So let's say they're Democrats take Congress in 2026. That's what they want. That's the idea. So they're not playing for 2024 this year. They're playing for the downvote now and 2026.
Well, that's a possibility. I mean, the idea that they will prefer resistance and they prefer chaos. So let's have a major economic downturn. Let's tank the stock market. Let's make everybody lose their homes, lose their jobs, lose their homes.
And Trump will be blamed, by the way.
Trump will be blamed. It'll be Trump's problem.
It was all set up too. Those 16 laureates that Biden keeps throwing around here. These economic experts who are saying the economy is going to crash. Well, of course, all this policy for the last 4 years is going to cause that. You break everything apart. You tear down the house of cards. There's going to be a temporary problem.
Well, we don't need no coal. We don't need we're just going to have wind and solar.
Right. And there's something to be said for the fact that the Democrats don't have real policy aside from driving us towards the Agenda 2030. They want to run against things, and that's where they're strong, running against something, not running for something, because they're really not for anything. They're even against what the country stands for as a whole, as a collective.
Yeah, they really hate America.
Right.
I think the exposure of the algorithms was fundamental to changing their plans. And I think we really did reverse a lot. That's why God's Five Stones, I think, is doing well, because we showed people how the cheating is done. And this demonstration, I think, is taking hold. We're still fighting to get enough people to be aware of it. But increasingly, there's a whole movement out there to get voter integrity. And there's a whole army of people out there ready to pass the word. So I think increasingly we're finding out that these elections are rigged. They're being run by the intelligence agencies. And as such, the outcome can be predetermined by the intelligence agencies. So if the intelligence agencies decide that this year they're going to ease off on the algorithms, they're not going to use them as hard because it would be too obvious. They're going to let Trump win, and then they're going to trash Trump for 4 years and make it hard for Trump to get anything accomplished. The assassination attempts, we've already had 2 assassination attempts on Trump. How many more are we going to have if he's president? So we're in chaos right now, where the world's in chaos. It's heating up in Lebanon because you've got Israel attacking now the Hamas in Lebanon directly. You've got the potential of expanding this war into Russia if the NATO's crazy enough to have these long-range missile attacks on Russian soil. Taiwan is in the balance here. It's waiting for the Chinese to do something or other, like they did in Hong Kong. Eventually, China will move and take Taiwan back. And the world is in chaos. But it doesn't seem to matter. Cities are deteriorating. We've got millions of illegal immigrants that we don't know what to do with. And the Democrats have no solution except for Kamala Harris. It's insane. But I've always said, in the end, God always wins. We're going to pay a price for this insanity, and we're going to get a judgment of God. And I pray it's not nuclear war, but it could be. That could be around the corner. And October is going to be a wild month because it's the month in which all this is going to get decided. Dr. Jerome Corsi, thank you for joining us this week on thetruthcentral.com. In the end, God always wins. God's going to win this too. God's sovereign. Doesn't mean we are going to win or that the GOP is going to win. GOP also took the Right to Life platform plank out of the GOP platform. That was a wrong thing to do. It should have stayed in there. And I'm sure God noticed it. So, on the spirit of 2 Chronicles 7:14, I'm encouraging everybody to repent for letting it get to this point. And God will hear our prayer and heal the land. I think we're at that point where we need nationwide revival. Dr. Jerome Corsi, thank you for joining us this week on The Truth Central. Please visit us also on gods5stones.com to see updates on the algorithms and our attempt to explain to the American people how our voter databases have been corrupted. Dr. Jerome Corsi, thank you for joining us. God bless.